exhibition was designed to commemorate Willie's life. We had a memorial service for him in March at the Yale School of Music with members of the Dizzy Gillespie All-Stars and the, oh gosh, I'm blanking on names, Libby. The other jazz great whose band was there, and our professor, current jazz professor is in it. I'm sorry, I should have planned all the names
That's
out.
Wayne Escoffery. That's Wayne Escoffery.
Wayne Escoffery. So there was a beautiful memorial concert, and that's the day we launched this exhibition. We had done an exhibition to celebrate Willie's life and career when he retired from Yale back in 2017, and we didn't want to reprise the same exhibition here. And that exhibition is online within the Yale Library online exhibitions, if you want to go and see what that looks like. So for this exhibition, we decided to focus on Willie's gift of 9 interviews with jazz greats. Willie had started interviewing them in 1972, and first he had a radio show, and he interviewed Bessie Jones, who you may have heard of her singing group, the Georgia Sea Island Singers. Bessie was born in Georgia. She was an amazing human repository of African Americans' children's games and songs. And in the portion of the exhibit devoted to her, we actually have her singing a chain gang song that she heard as a child and talking about how they would perform it and when they would move. As you may know, work songs are a type of musical composition, and they were often created to help workers work together. So especially because in chain gangs, I don't know if you ever got to see a chain gang, but when I was growing up in the South, they were still a feature that we would sometimes come upon driving through the country. And they would all be chained together. And so they would have to work in harmony. They would all have to move at the same time in order not to throw each other off balance. So at a certain point in the song, you can hear the movement, the sound of the movement. That was, Willie interviewed her 19 times. It's really kind of amazing. There's a lot of interviews devoted to her. But then in 1972, the Rockefeller Foundation was planning a series of recordings for the American Bicentennial to commemorate the history of America in sound. And Willie proposed a recording that would be interviews with jazz greats. And he went out and interviewed Dizzy Gillespie, U.B. Blake, Benny Carter, Earl Hines, Ethel Waters, and John Hammond. And he also may have interviewed Louis Armstrong, but the Armstrong recording that we got is actually a recording from a radio show with Armstrong talking and spinning discs. So for our exhibition, we have photographs of these people in the cases, little biographies of each of them, and that was very interesting to me. The biographies are a bit long for an exhibition, but I found they had such multifaceted careers that started off in jazz frequently, but then as they went on, they became teachers at universities. U.B. Blake learned to read score when he was in his 60s and set out about writing down all of his ragtime compositions at that point. Benny Carter taught at several institutions. Several of them were awarded honorary doctorates by major American universities. And it's just a wonderful collection. The heart of the exhibition, though, is the audio and visual exhibition. Above our exhibit cases that have the photographs of the musicians, we have 3 video monitors and 3 directional speakers. And if you stand at a precise point underneath those speakers, you can actually hear the audio from the monitor right in front of you. It's rather quiet because with 3 in close proximity, we didn't want sound bleeding over from one to another. that's not totally successful. When Louis Armstrong is playing the trumpet, you can pretty much hear it anywhere in the hallway. But the video exhibition includes a bit of their recorded interview and then a bit of their music. The reason that Willie interviewed these people was because they were first and foremost great jazz musicians. So as interesting as interviews are, if you don't hear a little bit of the person playing, it seemed to me you'd be missing out a bit on the experience Willie wanted you to have. So then we were also fortunate to receive from the Yale Film Archive 2 films that Willie made. Well, one film that he made and one that was made about the Ellington Fellowship concert. So when Willie arrived in 1971, he set about persuading the president of the university, Bart Giamatti, to create the Ellington Fellowship Award, to cast a medal and to invite, I don't know how many jazz greats to Yale, which there was a big concert. Duke Ellington was playing. Many of these people were playing, and you can see the photograph that is here. The 3 black and white photos are from that 1972 concert. You see in the central one that he's holding, Willie is on the right, Duke Ellington is in the center, and Dizzy Gillespie, wearing the sunglasses and the beret, is on the left. Behind Willie's shoulder, left shoulder, I think that's Slam Stewart, if I'm not mistaken. And up in the right, do you recognize that? Is that Dizzy there? I don't think so. I'm not sure who's playing the trumpet in the right, but this was a notable accomplishment for a brand new jazz professor at Yale. Not a branch of music that had really been celebrated at Yale much before Willie's arrival. So this photograph, the graphic design on the left, they're part of the exhibition. Today I want to play 2 clips. And the first one is Willie Ruff on a panel with Brian Meacham, who's the film archivist at Yale, and Libby. This was an interview that was conducted at Yale in 2020. And as the interview itself is now part of Oral History of American Music. So here's Willie speaking.
But we hadn't planned just at that time to stop by Miles Davis's house. But on the way to Carnegie Hall, Dizzy had the bright idea. We drove flying down the road in the 2 taxis, and he said to the drivers, "Turn right at the next corner." He said, "That's not where Carnegie Hall is." He said, "No, that's where Miles lives. Let's stop and surprise him." And Miles had a young new wife, and Dizzy rang the bell, down at the ground level, and the young lady opened the door up on the 3rd floor of the brownstone, and she said, "Who is it?" And Dizzy says, "Tell him it's Dizzy." She said, "Dizzy who?"
So that account was, of course, of Willie and Dizzy Gillespie in a taxi going to Carnegie Hall and then detouring to see Miles Davis. I don't know if you could catch Miles's name in there, but what a story. Willie was truly a repository of great stories, and I was fortunate to know him, for 20 years or so, and he would drop in occasionally and tell me the most wonderful things. Here's a bit of Willie playing. He, when Willie went to Venice, and he was able to convince the people at St. Mark's Basilica to let him stay behind after closing and make a recording playing the horn. And so here's Willie playing part of Go Down Moses on his horn. I can't find my. Here we go. So of course, that's not a jazz piece, but if you know the history of music, spirituals led into the blues, and the blues led to jazz, and um, Willie loved all those forms of music, as well as classical music. And so we're really grateful to have these interviews here to share with people. They have all been placed online, and anyone who's listening today could go to our website and search for the Willie Ruff interviews in archives at Yale. Just ask the librarian how to get there, and listen to these interviews. So I hope that you will do that, and I hope that you will stop by the music library. We are on the first floor of Sterling Memorial Library, and we're near the York Street entrance to the library. Our exhibit cases are in the hallway, and our video monitors just outside the music library. I mentioned one film, but I didn't mention the other. One of the amazing things that Willie did was he studied filmmaking at USC, the University of Southern California. He went with a fabulous drummer to Senegal. This was a drummer who, as a young man, had played with Miles Davis. His name is Tony Williams, and Willie filmed him in Senegal, playing in the jungle, playing in small villages with African drummers and people dancing, and it's just an amazing film. And that is on the third monitor in our exhibition. And now I'm going to turn it over to Libby Van Cleve to tell you more about oral history of American music. I'm going to stop this share and share another screen with you.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, all of you listening, and thank you, Michael, for initiating this, because we're very happy to share anything having to do with Willie Ruff, because he was a very beloved figure. What I'm going to do in the next few minutes is tell you a little bit about the Oral History Project, and also then tell you specifically about how Willie has interacted with the Oral History Project. And Suzanne, if you want to share your screen and put up the collections guide, that would be just so people have a visual. So the Oral History of American Music Project, OHAM, with its very unfortunate acronym, started in about 1969, and it originated with the study of those who knew and worked with Charles Ives. And it has very much expanded from there. It started as something that was mostly for what we might call art music or class or concert music. It's very hard. The language I don't like. We don't have words that I like for these kinds of categories. But what other people will call classical music. But even at the very beginning, there was a sort of an eclecticism at OHAM. The ragtime pianist Eubie Blake, he was the last composer and pianist of the ragtime era, was not only interviewed multiple times, but a documentary was made of him through OHAM. And at the time, late 60s, early 70s, John Cage was not really recognized as a musician. He was more appreciated by art school people and intellectuals, but not so much by musicians. However, the founder of OHAM, Vivian Perlis, recognized something in him and did a lot of work with him early on. There was always a kind of an openness. It wasn't just so-called classical music. Since OHAM is now part of the music library, it became officially a special collection in 2010. And since that time, we've been able to expand our offerings and have very seriously gone after interviews with jazz figures. And just lately, we've been interacting with the Music in the Black Church Institute at the Institute of Sacred Music and the Music Department. And we've been interviewing a lot of gospel figures. So our gospel collection has expanded mightily, and we're really happy and really proud of that. Really like that collaboration. The core unit Now let's see. If I had a minor malfunction with my computer, so yeah, Suzanne is being my helper here. So if you see just that first one down, major figures in American music, you want to click that, Suzanne? Um, that will give you a sense of the breadth of the collection if you just wanted to scroll through the names. You can go to archives at Yale if you know how to find it and find all these names, but we thought it was just simpler to just have a sort of an overview right here. Thanks, Suzanne. That's great. We also have, in fact, actually now if you want to go, thank you. You're good. You could this could be your second job, Suzanne. You're good at this. If you look here, you see Paul Hindemith, Charles Ives, Duke Ellington. These are secondary source interviews primarily with people who knew and worked with any of these figures. And that's another one of the collections that we have. I'm not going to go through everything we have, but I just wanted to specifically mention those. Um, OHAM now has thousands of recordings. We are an active oral history project, so we're out there interviewing musical figures, and at the same time, we work as an archive where these materials are used by scholars and musicians, radio producers, web producers now, lots of different people. Yeah, and of course we're also we're processing all these interviews. So it's an unusual thing at the library. We have a whole team of student workers who help transcribe the interviews, and it's a job that they love, and we love having them. It's great. In addition to all of the interviews that we personally conduct, we acquire lots of material. We have well, first of all, we have presentations, anything that's been done at Yale by major musical figure, we try to record it. We acquire materials from scholars and sometimes some journalists who are doing interviews with people. We have some radio broadcasts, old radio broadcasts. So we have a variety of materials. Anything that has been originated at OHAM, we transcribe. And those transcripts and the recordings are available, as Suzanne mentioned, at archives at Yale. If there's time, I might walk you through some of that, and if there's interest, I might walk you through some of that. Um, so that's just a broad overview of OHAM. And now I wanted to tell you a little bit about how the wonderful, very multifaceted relationship that OHAM has had with Willie Ruff. I loved Michael's word centurion. He was, as I've said, and I think Suzanne mentioned too, just extremely beloved. I mean, and a fabulous raconteur. He came from Alabama, and he has that sort of Southern ability to tell stories. So he was great, but he was also somebody incredibly intelligent, incredibly accomplished, very broad in his interests. And thankfully he shared a lot of his materials with OHAM. So we have all kinds of materials that he has. He came to Yale on the GI Bill and studied with Paul Hindemith. At the time, he was a jazz musician, and apparently he tells a story which you can hear going to Charlie Parker and saying, "I think I want to expand my, I want to get to be a better musician. What should I do?" And Charlie Parker is saying, "Well, there's this cat. I can't do it. I can't do it." So Charlie Parker, but saying there's this cat at Yale named Paul Hindemith, and he's the guy I would go work with. So it's pretty extraordinary that that even Charlie Parker had his eye on Paul Hindemith. Paul Hindemith was a stern and extremely classically oriented German emigre, came over in the Second World War, and was also major person at Yale. So that was Willie's. He came here as a youngster on the GI Bill and eventually became part of the faculty. I always like this about Willie. His relationship with OHAM is the broadest of any human on earth. He was both interviewer, as we know from this exhibit, and also interviewee. He's been interviewed. I did a video interview with him, and others have done interviews with him. And also as a filmmaker, as Suzanne mentioned. The other thing, as an interviewee, he's represented both in terms of his own work, which is there are multiple interviews with him about that, but also he was interviewed regarding Paul Hindemith and also regarding Duke Ellington. So he's the only person on earth who is represented in so many different ways at OHAM, and I think that that's indicative of the kind of guy he was. He was just such a had had such broad interests, and also was very generous, wanted to share. It's great. So he had been sitting on those Rockefeller interviews for a long time and not sure what to do. We talked about book projects. We talked about various media projects. It's really before the days of podcasts, or he might have considered that, but ultimately he just turned them over to OHAM and gave them to us to share with the world, which is a great thing. In addition to the wonderful exhibit that Suzanne has put together, there was an exhibit by a PhD student whose name was Daniela Posey. And in this point, I wonder, can I share screen? Can I?
Is it on? It's on here, I think, Libby. It's on one of these pages. No?
Okay, or I could send you the link fast, or I can share my screen because I got it right here.
Okay, I'll stop
Whichever-
sharing and you can go ahead.
Okay, let's see if I can share. Here we go. Is this opening? Yeah, are we looking at the exhibit?
Yep.
Oh, good. I love it when these things happen properly. So rare, it seems. Anyway, Daniela Posey took these materials that Willie had so kindly donated, and made an online exhibit, which is available for all. You can see here. I could probably copy that into the chat when I'm done talking. I have to do one thing at a time. I'm one of those people. But you can see that some of the breadth of what she has done. There's all these different aspects, a whole lot about Bessie Jones, a lot about Big Mama Thornton, a lot about Ethel Waters. And if you go to any of these, you will see that there is not only information, but a fair number of recordings that I'm not going to try to play everything for you, but just so that you know that this is another way to access some of the Willie Ruff material. So if I'm going to stop now, but if there's interest in anybody who's listening and they want to know, we can walk you through how to access OHAM materials and specifically how to access some of these Willie Ruff materials if you're interested. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And thank you very much.